Reading with your kids.
Hola, ni hao, konnichiwa, assalamu alaikum, shalom, mahaba, ciao, bonjour, namaste, jumbo, bienvenidos. Hey, my name is Jeslie. Welcome to Reading with Your Kids. We're coming to you from the beautiful, wonderful, historical neighborhood of Reedville, located in the southwest corner of Boston, Massachusetts. We are so very honored and absolutely delighted that you're joining us in our mission to help all families grow closer through reading. We do that by sharing fun, thoughtful, and thought-provoking conversations with fascinating people who just happen to be writing books for kids of all ages. You can join us in that mission by telling all of your family and friends about the show and letting them know that they can hear us on the WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. And they can find us on the iHeartRadio app, on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pods, Podcast Addict, Audible, CastBox, Player FM, Amazon Music, wherever you find your favorite shows. We are excited to share a great episode with you today as we launch into 2025. First up, Valerie Higley is here to celebrate Shaman Rides the School Bus. Later in the show, we'll meet Arleen McCarthy. She is here to celebrate My Friend John. Join us right now from the beautiful state of Connecticut. Our guest is here today to celebrate her new children's book. Is called Shaman Rides the School Bus. Please welcome to the show, Valerie Higley. Hey, Valerie, how are you?
I'm great, and I am so excited to be here.
Delighted to have you on. I first met Valerie back this past summer down in Nashville. We were both exhibiting at a big educators event, and what a lovely city Nashville is. Did you get a chance to get out and do any of the restaurants or any of the cowboy country music things that are all throughout Nashville?
We did a little bit. There were a couple, three principals that I traveled with, and we did a little bit. My kids made fun of me because they said I should have gotten out more, but I chose to stay in my hotel and do more work in my downtime.
Okay. All right. Well, next time, Nashville is a really fun city, and there's some great restaurants all throughout the area. Tell us about Shaman Rides the School Bus, please.
So Shaman Rides the School Bus is the story of a goat riding the bus for the very first time. He learns all about how to stay safe and make safe choices on the bus, but especially around the outside of the bus. We teach our kids at a very young age, 3, 4, 5. They start being exposed to the school bus, and usually by 5 years old, they're riding a bus to kindergarten. And we get calloused to the power of a school bus, and we don't respect it as much as we should because we're around it so much. We just tend to forget. So I put in story form all of the most important lessons that all kids need to know in order to stay safe, especially around the school bus. Yeah. Shaman learns where the danger zone is and how to avoid it, what to do if he drops something outside the bus, and how to complete safe crossing procedure.
You know, I have to, now, before we go any further, we should just acknowledge that you are an expert when it comes to school bus safety. You've been driving a school bus for some time.
Yes, so I've been driving since the year 2000. My youngest was about 3 years old, and I wanted to add a little bit of extra income to our family. And so having mother's hours, time in the middle of the day and the flexibility and being able to be available for my children, that was the most important thing. So I started driving a bus. And it's kind of funny. At the time, I was afraid to drive a pickup truck. So the very first time I ever sat behind the wheel with a trainer, I just put it in drive, the bus. I put the bus in drive, and I didn't even step on the gas. because I was afraid. But a lot of time has elapsed since then, and it has been one of the best experiences as far as being able to earn extra income, but as well as developing a love for helping children and helping families. And bus drivers don't always recognize the fact that we make education accessible and equitable for all children. And now we have the pandemic under our belts, and we can look back to a time when there was no transportation. And even now in these days where there is a national bus driver shortage, and then there are some cities that have to cancel routes and they have to look to alternative transportation. And because there are not enough bus drivers, those kids are the ones that are suffering, of course. And it breaks my heart to think that kids aren't going to be able to get a good education because they don't have a way to get there.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, you bring up some really good points that I frankly never thought about. My kids did not ride a school bus. Our kids went to a Catholic school, and that one they were able to walk to, and another that we drove them to. And I remember being in New Jersey and seeing a school bus pull up to the school and seeing 3 and 4-year-olds hopping off the bus to go into their preschool. And I was both delighted because it was really cute, but I was also kind of horrified thinking, you're sending a 3-year-old on a school bus? It just seemed insane to me. But as you said, you know, not every family is blessed to be able to drive their kids to school or to live close enough that they can walk.
You're right. And as far as I can totally understand the anxiety that would accompany sending a 3-year-old away with anyone that is not myself or my husband. My husband and I were very involved in our kids growing up. And so I can appreciate the magnitude of trust that is bestowed upon a bus driver, because every day we are responsible for 50, a capacity for a school bus is 72 passengers. So up to 72 precious little people. And so I very much took that into consideration when writing Shaman Rides the School Bus. One of my main inspirations were the wonderful parents that I had the pleasure of seeing every single day. They wanted to teach their kids and often look to me for cues about how to teach their kids and what they needed to tell them in order for them to know how to be safe. So when I put those lessons on paper, they are based on real life scenarios. Names and situations have been changed slightly, but they're like in the beginning, there's Shaman gets on the bus and he says, "I'm going to school today." And Miss Lucy, the bus driver, smiles knowingly and says, you know, what she says. But that really happened. So I've had kids get on the bus and be so excited. And I think, yeah, I know, I'm taking you there. They're precious.
You know, as you're speaking and mentioning, and I want to get into some specifics, the danger zones and whatnot. I know, I can't say with 100% certainty, but I am pretty confident. My wife taught in Boston for 34 years, and I don't ever remember her talking about having the kids attending a how to ride the bus safely assembly or meeting at the beginning of the year. It's kind of like, oh, you get on the bus and get off the bus. It's more to it than that, right?
Certainly. And usually the conversation revolves around stay in your seat and keep your voice quiet, which good manners are certainly absolutely important, and they contribute to a safe environment inside the bus. But that's not all there is to it. So the danger zone, what you had mentioned. So the danger zone is the area that's 10 feet around the entire bus. So we typically tell kids to stay 10 giant steps away. And when I have had the privilege of doing the expectation meeting at the beginning of the year, and when the principal meets with the whole school and they go over the expectations for the hallway, cafeteria, bathrooms, the playground, and the school bus. So for years, we've said the bus is an extension of the classroom. Mm-hmm. And I agree to an extent, where the things that, for example, the words that would not be spoken in the classroom should not be spoken on the bus. And the way that children treat each other in the classroom is the way, and the positive way that they should be treating each other on the bus. However, my boss made a joke one day, and she said, the bus really is an extension of the playground. Because in a respect, it's like white time, unfilled, unsupervised playtime. Mm-hmm. And so I have asked myself, it was beginning of 2021, and I found myself in the driver's seat with 14 kindergartners, in addition to the approximately 45 children on my, on my elementary run. So that day, it was the first day of school, and they were so excited. They were seeing their friends again for the first time. They hadn't seen each other all summer. And it was, the first day of school is so much fun. And I was sitting in the driver's seat, looking in the overhead passenger mirror and thinking, whose idea was this to create a 40-foot long box, put it on wheels, fill it with kids, and put one driver, one adult in the bus? So I fully support having monitors, and some people call them monitors, some people call them aides, a type of attendant on the bus, just for creating a positive atmosphere. Mm-hmm. We do have video in front and back, and that helps a lot. But children don't often make the connection between being videoed and possibly having a consequence. So that it's a lot of maintenance, especially mm-hmm. for the elementary ages. It's a lot of reminding and encouraging and creating. I keep saying creating a positive atmosphere, because I believe that so much of the ride home depends on attitude, and especially the bus driver's attitude. Yeah. So I think that we all have influence, and we all can use it for good. Yeah. When you were speaking, and again, as I think you said, I think all of us take a school bus for granted and don't think about it. And the idea of 72 kids being on a bus and different, we're not talking about a bus for first graders and a bus for second graders. In a typical elementary school, you could have preschoolers to sixth graders. So, 4 or 5 year olds to 11-year-olds. That's a big, wide age gap and maturity gap. And there's one person in charge to keep those kids safe, and that person has their back to the kids. And I know they have that little mirror, but they mostly need to look forward so they don't run into anything. That really is. I just was in England not too long ago, and I think over there they would have said, that's really mental.
you know, how that doesn't become a fiasco every day is a miracle.
It's a monumental task. And so in our district, we have kindergarten through fifth grade. Sixth, seventh, and eighth go to middle school, and then ninth through 12th, of course, is high school. So I know that, you know, in different areas, there are different requirements, busing requirements based on funding and whatnot. But I often use the older kids who have proven themselves to be good role models to come and sit. We sit by grades. So, of course, the kindergartners would be up in the first couple rows and so on all the way to the back. And I identify those fourth graders that have natural SEL skills and who are, who are respectful and who are kind and who want to encourage the younger ones. And I would put them to work coming up front, sitting with the smaller children and reminding them what the bus rules are. And in situations where there's, for example, the kindergartners start pulling out all their toys and they love to have their toys in their backpack, but they want to show them to everyone, which is understandable. But on the bus, I really need them to stay put away. And so the fourth graders are helpful with that and reminding them to not eat and things like that.
Yeah. Well, you know, I love that idea. I think it's something that we don't see in enough schools, the idea of having the older kids help out, whether it's on the bus, reading to young kids, have reading buddies. I know it exists. It existed in my kids' school, so a lot of parochial school, it happens, some districts, but there are other districts where it doesn't happen at all. And I think that that's a real missed opportunity because it's great for the younger kids. They look up to those big, as I remember saying, the big kids.
Yes.
And it's also great for the older kids because it gives them a sense of responsibility. It builds their self-esteem. And having a fourth grader tell a kindergartner to sit down, put the toy away, it's going to be a lot more effective than you seeing something in the mirror and saying, okay, put that away. And I put it away already.
And then maybe they did and maybe they didn't.
Exactly.
Maybe they're crawling underneath the seat to show the kid behind them.
So what's the most important thing we should be talking to our kids about and the most important thing we're going to learn as we read Shaman Rides the School Bus?
Oh, the most important, if I could narrow it down to one most important thing, it would definitely be the danger zone and making sure that you stay 10 feet away from the outside of the bus. And so I actually put a video on my Instagram of me demonstrating getting off the bus, going down the stairs and dropping a ball and it rolling next to the tire. And so that often we find ourselves next to a bus in front of, crossing in front of a bus is very important to remember to cross in front of the bus. But there is a product, which is like an aftermarket product that is not required in all states. And it's called a crossing arm. And it extends from the front bumper whenever the door is open and the stop sign is out and the red lights are flashing. There should be what I call to the kids a stick that comes out of the front bumper and it goes 10 feet in front. It extends 10 feet. So that helps a lot to prevent children from being close to the front bumper. So that's another super important thing is to stay, 10 giant steps away. And related to the danger zone, not crossing behind the bus. In fact, would it be okay if I read one of the poems?
Sure, absolutely.
Okay, so Miss Lucy, this is the one thing that I really emphasize when I read to classes is the danger zone poem. So Miss Lucy is the driver, and she says, around the bus are danger zones. Pay attention now, these must be known. Look for the open door, start today. If it's closed, stay 10 giant steps away. If you drop something, let it go. Before you pick it up, please let me know. Always cross in front, never in back. Behind the bus, it's so hard to keep track. The best way to stay safe is just to be sure you can always see your driver's face. And the corresponding picture that goes with the poem has an aerial view of a bus with it's beautifully designed arrows that go, I'll show it to you.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a safe path where you can see going from the service door to 10 feet outside.
Uh-huh.
How's that?
That's
Good?
That's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so the illustrator did an amazing job with that. So basically, you go from out 10 feet outside, straight to the service door, and then straight out and back. And not walking at a diagonal or, any of the other configurations that would put you close to the tires at any time inside that danger zone.
Yeah. Yeah, when you as you're talking, it's a 4 or 5-year-old kid in kindergarten, they probably wouldn't even be as tall as the tires on your bus.
I'm so glad you mentioned that because they're not. Most times they are shorter than a tire.
So important. And that sticky thing, that safety arms thing, I see here in Reedville, when we're a lovely little neighborhood, but we have a busy street, a parkway that runs through this main street. And there's a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit, of which here in Massachusetts means that most drivers are going 45. And there are a couple of school buses that drop kids off, and the kids have to cross this very busy street. And thankfully, most times people pay attention to those red lights and the stop sign and will stop. But boy, I wouldn't want my little one to have to cross that street by themselves.
So, according to the National Highway Traffic and Safety Administration, children are 70 times more likely to arrive at school alive when they take the big yellow school bus as opposed to a passenger vehicle. So, with 480,000 school buses on our nation's roads, less than 1% of all fatalities occur related to school buses. So, there's a lot of vehicles on the road, and unfortunately, about 50% of them happen at the negligence of the other driver.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there is a movement nationwide to get away from crossing and to write the routes in a way that puts the child on the correct side of the street when they exit and board the bus. I fully support that. It's not always possible in the more rural areas.
Sure.
I believe that one accident is too many.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, that I know of, there have been a handful of accidents in 2024. It breaks my heart because it's preventable. Now I'm trying to think of it, there was a survey, I believe it was the Kentucky Board of Education does a survey. It's like 50 years running. And it was an anonymous survey. And one of the questions on there was, would you stop to see yellow lights? If you saw yellow lights, would you stop for the school bus? Because of course, before the red lights come out, the yellow lights are on. And the percentage of people that said no and gave the reason that they did not care was astounding. I would have to go back and look at that survey and get the numbers again. But it was shocking. And just because they didn't care. It's mind-boggling. And it's infuriating and disheartening and shocking to think that our kids could be in danger just because somebody doesn't care enough to get themselves ready a little bit sooner in the morning so that they're not in such a hurry during their average everyday commute.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, that's mind-boggling. I can't imagine thinking that way, and I certainly can't imagine saying that to another human being.
Exactly. Actually admitting it, anonymous or not.
Yeah. That's crazy. It's obvious that you are passionate about this, and I am hoping that this is that you are not the exception. I'm hoping that every school bus driver out there has the same passion and commitment to keeping kids safe as you do.
Absolutely. And the vast majority of bus drivers that I've met and worked with are just the same. And it's really sweet to see the bond that forms between a bus driver and the kids. I would tell my kids that I see them every day and I'm going to be with them as much as I am with my family. So I really want to have a good ride to school. I want to enjoy being around them and I want to have a good time. And starting out the year on that positive note really lends to positivity throughout the year. And so for most of the bus drivers that I've met, vast majority, absolutely, are safety minded and safety conscious.
Yeah. Well, typically we tell folks, this is a great book, great conversation to have with your kids. I am hoping that people who are listening not only will consider bringing Shaman Rides the School Bus into their family library, but takes the next step and gets in touch with your kids' school, their teachers, their administrators, and suggests that every classroom carries Shaman Rides the School Bus and to have a conversation with kids on a regular basis about how to stay safe and how to keep themselves and their classmates safe while they're riding the school bus.
Absolutely. I believe that Shaman has a place in every single classroom. And so I'm starting a new thing where anybody who wants to can sponsor a classroom. And so I'm going to ask for any of the listeners who are interested to reach out to me at info@shamanridestheschoolbus.com and either go to my website or go to that email address and just reach out to me and let me know what classroom you want to sponsor. $50 gets a copy of Shaman Rides the School Bus and the plushie that goes with it. And I partnered with Vermont Teddy Bear to produce this stuffed animal to go with the book. He looks just like the main character. He's absolutely adorable. And when I put him in my backpack and bring him on the bus with me, I put him at the top of the stairs. And of course, all the kids, they love him. They want to pet his head. They want to hold him. And I bring the prototype. So he has offered comfort to the little ones who are not having such a good day, upset or sad or whatever. And they get to hold Shaman on the way home, and he provides comfort for them. And he's just a wonderful addition. So as far as getting Shaman in every home and in every classroom, I absolutely wholeheartedly want to facilitate that. My husband has been wonderful. Let me just talk about him for 1 second. He has been so supportive. And when I told him that I wanted to write a book, he was supportive. And then I told him I wanted to launch a stuffed animal. He scratched his head for a minute and thought, okay, if you think it'll work, let's do it. And so we scrounged all our change and, put our pennies together, and we partnered with Vermont Teddy Bear, and they've been wonderful. But having him just in boxes doesn't do the kids any good. And so to get him out there and in the classroom, and any classroom that has Pete the cat should have Shaman the goat as well.
Well, I agree. And I want to encourage everybody. This is the start of a brand new year, 2025. I'm delighted that most kids who get on a school bus get to school safe and on time. Let's see if we can make sure that in 2025 and beyond that every kid gets to school on time and safely. And a Shaman rides a school bus would be a great tool to make that happen. Valerie, thank you so very much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Are you looking for a creative way to bond with your kids? Let me tell you all about Drawing with Your Kids, the ultimate destination for artistic adventures. Join us as we dive into the wonderful world of children's books with renowned illustrators guiding you step by step. From beloved characters to whimsical scenes, unleash your imagination and create cherished memories together. Whether you're a seasoned artist or just picking up a pencil, there's something for everyone at Drawing with Your Kids. Please visit our website, readingwithyourkids.com, and click on the Drawing with Your Kids link at the top of the page and let the creativity flow. Drawing with Your Kids, where every stroke brings stories to life. Join us right now from New York City. Our guest is here today to celebrate her debut children's picture book. It's called My Friend John. Please welcome to the show, Arleen McCarthy. Hey, Arleen, how are you?
I am well. Thank you for having me.
Delighted to have you on. I have a number of friends named John. Tell me about your friend named John.
Sure. So my book, My Friend John, was inspired by my brother John. And my brother John has Tourette Syndrome, so I wanted to write a children's book just talking about, neurodiversity and, bringing awareness to and acceptance to neurodiversity. And it's a beautiful story, and it came out on November 8th.
Tell us a little bit about what Tourette Syndrome is, please.
Sure. Tourette Syndrome is a nervous system disorder involving repetitive movements or unwanted sounds. And my brother was diagnosed with it when he was, I believe, 5 years old. And it's a very interesting disorder because, the tics are fluid. So he started with blinking and, twitching his arms and his legs. And, my mom and my dad were just, unsure about what was going on. So when they took him to a neurologist and had this diagnosis, it was really hard. It was a really hard time for my parents, for my brother, because at school he was having a very hard time controlling his tics because, like I said, they are repetitive movements or unwanted sounds, and they were fluid. So some days he would have verbal tics and some days he would have physical tics. Mm-hmm. So it's a very interesting disorder.
Yeah. And I'm sure at that time we have a lot more understanding and I think a lot more empathy for people who have differences, but I guess we're talking about 10, 15 years ago, and I think...
More. My brother's 50 now, so this was a long time ago. So it was a time where there wasn't much awareness and or acceptance. Mm-hmm. And so my parents had a really hard time keeping him in public school. He had to go to a private school to get the care and the need that he needed at the time.
Right. Yeah. I'm, older than both you and your brother, and I'm older than most of the world, but I know myself, I imagine if I was in first grade and I had somebody who was making just involuntary sounds or movements, I probably, and they were different every day. I'd probably be wondering why can't you control that? Why do you have to do that?
Sure. So that's why I wrote the book, because I felt like as a teacher, we needed a book like this in our classrooms, in libraries, in bookstores, everywhere, to educate young readers about neurodiversity and specifically Tourette syndrome.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you are a veteran New York City school teacher.
I am.
Very much for that. My beautiful wife taught in the Boston Public Schools for 34 years.
Wow. That's a
yeah.
long. This is my 27th year.
Well, that you're very close.
I know, it's crazy. Time flies.
It's funny. Every teacher that we meet who's retired, when you're talking to them, like how many years did you teach? And they all say, I did 34 years. I did 27 years. Like they served a prison sentence.
It's a great job. I'm really happy that I'm a teacher and I've given so much time, because we have a huge impact on children and who will be our future leaders. Mm-hmm. So I think this job is a calling. I think you have to be a special type of person to do it, and then to stay in the system for as long as, your wife and I have. You really have to be devoted and dedicated, and like I said, a special human.
Yeah. And I think it's a especially difficult job in a big system like the Boston system, and an even more bigger system like the New York City system, because there's so many layers of people above you making decisions that are greatly affecting you and the kids in your classroom.
100%. That's why I'm a huge fan of ICT classes, because which are integrated co-teaching classes, where you have two teachers in the room. You have a general ed teacher and a special ed teacher, and you have a class with general ed students and students with, special needs. Mm-hmm. And it's this blended family, and everyone is, it's just practicing inclusivity at its best. And I feel that, when we have classes that are like that, we are bringing so much awareness to neurodiversity and the importance of accepting neurodiversity. And it's just a beautiful place to teach. And the years that I've been in an ICT setting have been my most favorable.
Yeah. It's interesting. I've shared on the podcast in the past, way back in 1998, I was working in a school for kids with severe developmental disabilities, and that was run by the Boston University Hospital, University Hospital, and it was a very isolated. We were in a hospital setting, and the wow. kids were living at home. But the state of Massachusetts came up with this right before the ADA, Americans with Disability Act, was passed, and said, we want to get kids with developmental disabilities out into the community. And I think the hospital school hired me because I had no idea what I was doing, and they thought, this is a terrible idea that the state wants to do, so let's hire a dope to run this program and let it fail. And it didn't fail, and it was a huge success. And I was there was a school, the Boston Public School with the most. So the most parents who were incarcerated, the most parents with drug involvement, the most, just all the worst things. And I went to that school and I said, I have this idea. Would you like to try it? And the principal said, yep. And the kids there were so accepting of our kids. They would, and we'd go over, and my kids loved having people read to them. And, my idea was, let's get some of the kids who are struggling with reading in your school, give them some practice, let them read to my kids. it was it was a huge success to the point where the hospital school closed 2 years later because the school system said, "Oh, we don't need you. We can do this back in our school." And
That's wonderful.
it was wonderful. Have we? So that was 1989, 1990. Have we come a long way? I don't think we've come far enough, but how far have we come in terms of really accepting kids with differences into typical situations?
That's a great question. I am so happy to say that in my school, we do a wonderful job with inclusivity. We have this great special ed program. We have a great school-based support team. We have every grade has an ICT, class. So in my school, there's so much awareness, so much acceptance. It's just a beautiful place to be. But I do not know how it is in other schools, to be honest with you. I believe in the New York City Department of Education, we're doing a great job with inclusivity and bringing awareness to neurodiversity and acceptance to neurodiversity. So I'm so happy to say that in New York City, we're doing a great job, but I do not know how it is in different parts of the world. That's why I wanted to write my book, My Friend John, because this book really is a great education on acceptance of neurodiversity and Tourette Syndrome and awareness. And I feel that children's literature is so important because the messages that authors can convey to young readers can leave such an amazing impact on them. So that's why I wrote the book, because I wanted to spread this awareness, spread this acceptance across the world in this story.
Yeah. I'm imagining somebody listening at home might be sitting there thinking, well, it sounds like Arleen wrote a great book, but my kid, we don't know anybody with Tourette syndrome. So this book isn't for us. What might you say to that person?
Because this book is not just about Tourette syndrome. It is about friendship. It's about being a leader. It's about being kind. It's about being an upstander versus a bystander. And it doesn't matter. It doesn't have to be Tourette syndrome. It could be any type of learning disability, any kind of disorder that someone has. I mean, we have autism today, and there's a huge range of autism. So it doesn't have to be Tourette syndrome. It's just accepting everyone for who they are and being kind and having empathy and showing compassion for, each other. And that's my message is really about, being a good person and being kind to people. And I'm so excited to have it out in the world because I feel like it's going to make a huge impact.
Yeah. We love to celebrate the fact that books can be mirrors, windows, and sliding glass doors. And obviously a kid with Tourette syndrome would love seeing themselves portrayed positively in your book. But as you were saying, I think giving other kids a chance to look through that window to see what it's like to have a friend who has a difference, to imagine how would I like to be treated if I had a difference?
Yes.
And helping us to understand that we are all part of one beautiful human family.
Yes. And it starts with children.
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to my experience, a lot of the adults were throwing up roadblocks. Well, you got to worry about this, you got to worry about that. And meanwhile, the kids were just like, yeah, we want to read to him. We want to read to her.
I know, kids are beautiful. They're like blank canvases, and you can really instill such great values, especially in elementary school. And you can really foster and promote kindness and empathy and compassion, all the things that we want as humans with children early on.
Yeah. So what was it like when your students found out that you are an author?
Oh my gosh, they were psyched. I mean, this was a real beautiful experience for me. This is a dream come true. I wrote this book in 2019, and as you know, it takes a long time to, manifest a book. And when it came out, I was just, almost, it was like a dream, like I said, a dream come true. And it felt so empowering and so joyful to know that I will make a difference across the world with this message, because I know in my heart that it will.
Yeah. You're right about books taking a long time. I was literally shocked. Back in 2017, when I launched Reading with Your Kids, we had Christopher Robbins, who's the publisher of the owner, the president of Familius Publishing, and when he told me that it could take 3 to 4 years from the time they purchase a manuscript until the time a book lands on the shelf, I was shocked, to say the least.
I know. I wrote this in 2019, like I said, and I did not get an acceptance letter from my publishing company until March 2023.
So they actually turned it around pretty quickly.
Yes, I mean, right, they did. I mean, it took a long time for the graphic art to be done because I was very picky on how I wanted it to look and be, so that took a long time. But really, it wasn't as, long as I had anticipated, but the process of, sending it out, sending your manuscript to many different publishing places, and, you do get rejections, but I saw every rejection as a redirection. So it ended up in the right place at the right time. And now here we are.
There you go. What advice can you have for other teachers out there? Because teachers, you're exposed to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of children's books. My beautiful wife, we get books here all the time. She will pick up a book and just open it up and look at a couple of pages, and she'll make a decision as to whether or not she wants to read it or bring it into her classroom. No, my kids would be bored with this, and just know, and she's right. So teachers have a good sense of what makes a good book and what books kids will love to read. But teachers don't have a lot of time, as you know. What advice would you give to a teacher who has an idea, who knows about books, and would like to get the book out there, but it's like, it seems daunting. Here, Arleen went, 3-4 years before someone even said yes to her idea.
I would say you have to have perseverance. You have to have stamina. You have to believe in your message, and you just have to, keep going and, use your time wisely, organize. Like, teachers are so busy, but we have a lot of vacation time. We have the summers off. That's when I wrote my story in 2019 when I was on a study sabbatical, and I had this time. And, you have to find the time to create your passions, to do your passions, and persevere through hardships and, challenges. Because look, I am an example of, doing just that. So I would say organizing your time, using your weekends, using your holidays to devote to your writing.
Yeah. One of the questions I love asking teachers, I traveled around and visited thousands and thousands of schools over the past 35 years doing educational magic shows. And so if I were to take this pen, which has awesome magical powers, and hand it to you and say, Arleen, what would you do with this pen to change the education system, to make it as perfect as it could be? What would you do with it?
That's a great question. I would say to bring more creativity to schools, where students are doing more arts, where we're doing more, music, drama, taking time to learn maybe sign language, bringing more of arts and, sciences to schools versus, sticking to this very regimented curriculum, reading, writing, math. I think we need more, delight in schools, where kids are doing, arts and crafts or taking, singing lessons or learning how to play a cool instrument or maybe taking a drama class. So I think implementing more arts into schools is the magic wand that's what I would use with the magic wand.
Yeah, I love that. Because you can still reading, you're in drama, you have to read the script.
Yes.
In music, you need to know about numbers and time and fractions even. And
yes,
you can integrate all that stuff. One of the things that I hear from teachers who have written and come on the show is that there's very little space for them to be creative, to be able to say, I know what I need to do to reach this kid, but I'm not allowed to do it.
I do not feel that way, though, because I feel like in my school, like I said, I'm in a really great school, and I feel very fortunate that my administration is very, they trust us so much that they know that we always have the right tools and we can always meet the needs of all of our students, and everyone has a different learning style. So our job is to, meet the needs of our students. So I have to say that I feel that in my school, we do a great job at, going outside of the box a little bit, and, being able to be more creative with curriculum and, the way we teach certain things. We're sticking to, the Common Core standards, but we're, just sparkling it with our own creativity and, talent.
Excellent. Well, that's great. Can we give a shout out to your school since they're doing such a great job?
Yes. PS 110. It's in Greenpoint, Brooklyn. It's a great school.
Awesome. Awesome. Hey, I'm really curious. What does your brother think of my friend John?
Oh my gosh, he loves it. He loves it. In fact, he lives in an assisted living, and he asked me to, give him like 10 books, and I had to sign them, and he was giving them out to either his friends or the staff that works at his residence, and he wanted me to sign it and write a little message. And he's so proud and happy. And he's my biggest fan. He's actually my biggest fan.
That's beautiful. Hey, Arleen, can we tell everybody where we can go to find out more about my friend John and also find out more about you?
Sure. You can find my friend John in Barnes & Noble, on Amazon, BAM. And I have a website, arleenmccarthy.com, where you can also find more about me, and there's a link to buy my book. And yes, and hopefully I will be on more podcasts like this, and you'll learn more about me in time.
Awesome. We've had a great time speaking to the author of the debut children's book, My Friend John. Our guest has been Arleen McCarthy. Arleen, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me.
We hope you've enjoyed this episode of Reading with Your Kids, and will join us for the next exciting episode of the show. As we launch into 2025, we hope you don't miss a moment of the podcast. So please take a moment to subscribe to the show wherever you find your favorite shows. We love the iHeartRadio app, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Good Pod. We love Good Pod. We also love the AM/FM 24/7 radio network, WREB AM/FM 24/7 radio network. So if you're listening to us on the network, please let your local station managers know you love Reading with Your Kids. I want to thank the folks who made today's show so wonderful. Starting with our guest, Valerie Higley. Please be sure to check out Shaman Rides the School Bus. and Arleen McCarthy. Please be sure to check out My Friend John. I want to thank my wonderful team, Fatima Khan, Chris Doherty, Rory Grady. I want to thank my beautiful wife for all the support she gives me. Most of all, we all want to thank you. Thank you so much for taking the time to join us today, and as always, thank you so very much for taking the time to make the world a better place. And you do that every time you read with your kids. I'll be looking for you in the next episode of Reading with Your Kids.